You're just about to watch an interview with John Sears and Arcanum Ventures. John is a brilliant Web3 founder and one of the minds behind Moonboots Capital, MoonbootsDAO, Moonpass, and also Chappyz, an innovative Web3 community building AI protocol. For more information on Chappyz, you can watch this video here for some background information and context. Hope you enjoy. Let's begin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Boom Room exclusive interview. This is Sasha with Arcanum Ventures. I'm here with my co-founder, Carmelo. And today we've got a very special guest joining us. We've got John Sears, a co-founder of Moonboots Capital and Chappyz. And they're venturing into some very, very cool aspects on Moonboots as far as DAO and decentralization. We've got him on here to talk about all things Web3 marketing, his journey in the space, and more to come with his companies. John, how are you doing? It's good to see you, man.
I'm good, thanks, guys. Monday morning here in the UK, so just getting all the cylinders firing, and happy to see you guys there.
Yeah, it's been a while, I think, since the last time we spoke. And before we hopped on, I think you mentioned the last time we spoke was around Chappyz launch, which was a little while ago. And for those of you that don't know, Chappyz is a really amazing earn to engage platform that uses artificial intelligence, essentially a community application that allows users to earn while engaging in partner projects and communities. So John, with that being said, give us a little bit of a rundown, like what brought you into the space when it comes to Moonboots, your cryptocurrency and blockchain investment fund advisory firm, and how that led you down the route to Chappyz?
Yeah, so it's been a long, slightly turbulent journey, I guess, in a relatively short space of time, but obviously time moves faster in this space. So. But yeah, personally, I started dabbling in buying tokens, trying to sort of vaguely understand what was going on from around 2016-17. I had a background in motorsport team management, so I managed racing teams globally for about 11 years, and then 4 years of private client wealth management. And that was kind of when I realized that a lot of things were broken. So when I started scratching the surface of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and decentralization in general, it obviously intrigued me. So yeah, fast forward, I think 2019 was when I decided to take the leap and kind of forget about the real world and take a leap into the unknown. And really gave myself about 6 months to research what was happening and dive deep. And that's when I met my business partner, Daniel Powell, in 2019. And we kind of saw that we had a similar values, outlook, and wanted to help people as well. So we started Moonboots Capital in early 2020 from pretty humble beginnings. A bit of personal capital. I'm really hungry to explore and get involved in what was going on. So we started offering whatever services we could from our skill set to get early stage access into various different things. I think one of the first ones was paid from Master Ventures, which we all know well. But yeah, we grew pretty quickly from there. So obviously we were adding some form of value and started getting more and more access. So over the next couple of years, we grew up Moonboots itself, started doing more and more services. We supported on KOLs, marketing, all that kind of stuff in the last run. As I said to you before the call, we kind of found ourselves running around with our hair on fire most of the time and kind of throwing people at it without proper recruitment, which never serves well in the long term. But we grew well, so we ended up probably over-investing in around about 150 different blockchain startups in that period. We built out a community, built out kind of private network that was closer to us as well. And yeah, it went well. Then the bubble burst and we had time to breathe. And Dan and I sat down and decided we wanted to build things to try and make the space a better place. And interestingly, Chappyz was something that we kind of thought about and conceived in 2021 when we looked at all these communities and they all had big numbers and big Twitter followers. And when you drilled down to the real engagement, it was like tiny, like 1% or something. So we thought that was an issue. And we actually came up with a white paper for something like Chappyz, but at the time we could only think about giving static rewards for people for engagement. And that didn't really fulfill what we were trying to achieve. So it was only really when the last year or two, well, 2 years really, that AI accelerated so much that we saw the potential to build a system with dynamic rewards that could actually work out how to reward the people, the ecosystem participants that were adding the most value by the value that they added. So yeah, we pulled together, got our head out the sand, feeling sorry for ourselves, looking at our investments, and decided to go full steam ahead with Chappyz from beginning of last year, essentially. So, yeah.
Right on. I wanted to.
And then, go on. So just quickly, at the same time, we formed Moonboots Labs. So that's kind of our top of ecosystem. And then we've got Moonboots DAO, which is, we've just recently tokenized our kind of investment arm. So we've got a DAO fund, and then we've got individual investors at a VIP and community level. And then we've got Chappyz, and then another product called Moonpass that we can talk about later.
So much going on.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are you still investing as Moonboots Capital as a separate entity, and then you're going to also have the Decentralized Fund as a community investment fund? Or are you going to everything together?
We've merged it all together.
Okay.
Wow.
So Moonboots DAO Fund, and then 2 levels of community investment in it. It's interesting because obviously certain projects like different types of investors. Some people don't like the community investors, so we could just invest as the DAO fund. Some people like that kind of network effect and more wallets. So we've got the optionality there. And then, of course, if we do want to make personal investments, then we can, which was what Moonboots Capital was, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, do you think that's an interesting point? I hadn't thought about it, but I see there's a lot of negative perception when it comes to decentralized VC or community VCs not being let into early or exclusive rounds. But there's an argument to be made that maybe in the future, at least, community VCs will bring more value, like you said, with more wallets, and you have a much larger community to bring in users and basically get the word out about the product. So do you think you're going to have any problems as a decentralized VC getting in early access to like some of the best deals that you see?
So we have encountered that a little bit so far, but in that instance, we can just invest with the DAO fund, which is professionally managed. But because the MBDAO token, all token holders benefit from the performance of the DAO fund, then we're still still supporting the members of the Moonboots DAO with any investments that are made, but we're also ticking the box of a professionally managed fund investing in the project. So we think that's the right approach, and the DAO members appreciate that as well. So
yeah, that's really interesting. I think what you described is actually very noble. I know there's a lot of different sort of decentralized investment funds that exist in the space right now. It's become way popular in the past couple of years, I think. And the idea of creating a more equitable landscape where normal everyday people that might not be so in touch or involved in the Web3 investing landscape can get more involved. And one of the things that Carmelo and I see in a lot of cases, especially when the markets are really heating up and there's a lot of capital being thrown around and projects and founders have the luxury of being a little bit more exclusive with capital, is they keep throwing this word around like value add investor. Like what other value are you bringing me outside of money? Because I've got money everywhere, so I have my pick of the litter. But the idea of, bringing something like Chappyz into the fold, where you can start to use this as like infrastructure to crowdsource labor or crowdsource engagement or crowdsource something from this decentralized group of investors all of a sudden changes the game. So I wanted to ask you, like, what kind of vision do you see of this product, Chappyz, fitting into an investment DAO?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's something that we've been playing with and exploring over the last few months. And I guess the cool thing with Chappyz, so we've built a really strong community around Chappyz, and also not just the international community, but we've got really strong language pods. And we kind of had this borderless digital nation vision with Chappyz, and wanted to make sure it was language pods rather than countries or whatever. But with some of the projects that we've supported and invested in, so some big ones recently, I think as a collective with Moonboots and Chappyz, we've been in the top 10 of referrals above most big KOLs. I think Humanity, we were number 3 out of 350,000 or something. So I guess if you look across our kind of social outlets, it might not be the biggest numbers, but because of our approach to this, which is really focused on real people and genuine engagement and all of that, we have actually got this really strong kind of support network. So along with the capital, everyone wants to be involved, get educated on the project, interact with the project. And I think that kind of combination is a really powerful partner, strategic investor in any project, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also on that note, are you going to continue to like incubate projects or advise projects, and how does that kind of plug into the decentralized VC model?
Yeah, so on the advisory side, we did quite a few sort of 2020 to 23. We're very selective with that now because we see a lot of advisors in the space, and you'll see their name on like, I don't know, 50 projects you come across, and like we don't think you can really give proper advice or proper value by doing that. So the way we're approaching it is if something really strong comes along that we like, then we're happy to consider it. But that's probably 3, 4, 5 max to give the full attention in a year. From the Moonboots DAO side, because we've worn most hats in the industry apart from writing code ourselves, I guess, and we've got a really strong network for each vertical you need to launch a Web3 project. So with Moonboots DAO and Chappyz, if projects want to come along and have kind of the right introductions and I suppose a soft advisory service based on the introductions, what we've done on both models really is any revenue stream that comes in from that goes into the DAO and benefits all the DAO members. So there's kind of two ways of looking at it. And like Moonboots DAO itself, the whole economy is structured that way. So you mentioned all of these community VCs and decentralized VCs. In 99% of cases, they'll charge 5 to 15% investment fee. Some of them take the mickey even more, but and they pocket that themselves. But in the Moonboots DAO model, that we've kept the investment fee there. We've actually saved up all the investment fees that we could have put in our pockets over the last 2 years. So we've got things like Portal Finance, Gunzilla, and everything to seed the DAO fund. And all of those moving forwards go back into the DAO economy to buy back the token. We've got buyback and burn function, distribution to stakers, and all of that kind of thing. So it's a really nice model to sit on stake tokens, increasing in value, and have distributions as well for profits.
Oh man,
yeah,
that's awesome. I think like in a perfect world, I'm sure someone will develop it. Maybe you guys, as far as like decentralized advisory models, but being able to create the infrastructure and offer like individual services from DAO members to portfolio clients can be so powerful. But going back to the idea of DAO and governance, I really salute everyone that is creating or starting and launching and managing a DAO, because they're constantly testing the theories of untested models and mechanisms and boundaries in this space. But it's such an important part of the cryptocurrency and blockchain landscape. So I want to ask you, more specifically around decision making and governance in the DAO. Like, you guys obviously are committed to funneling value from the activity in the DAO back to DAO holders, but what do you envision around decision making, for example, launching capital into a new venture or managing finances? Because this is something that many try, and we've seen many get wrong, funny enough.
Yeah, it's easy to get it wrong. I think there's a few areas to talk about here. And it's quite interesting. We've got our legal counsel, Metalaw, has supported 8DAO and Punt and some of the most prominent DAOs in the industry. And I think all of those at various points have got it wrong. So for me, I think you have to gradually move towards complete decentralization. Obviously, we've kind of built and carried this Moonboots baby as it becomes a toddler and grows up. So I think for us, we want it to become decentralized over time, but that requires education. And if we look at our kind of VIP group, we've got a lot of projects, found blockchain industry professionals. We've got a lot of people who've been investing in the space for a number of years, and we've got a lot of quality on there. So I think the first step is to participation is one of the biggest problems of DAOs. So the first step is to launch it. We're going to have an investment process where projects can be introduced to the DAO. They then get voted on whether we proceed with due diligence. And there's a due diligence process. Then we're going to have a DAO council, which will be voted on. And in that sense, it will all be decentralized, and members will decide what gets through, essentially. But then the overall direction of the DAO is something that we need to gradually kind of hand over a period of time, in my opinion. And we need to make sure that the community's ready, the community's participating, and the community's educated enough to develop it in the right way.
Yeah, I definitely align with that. Like, that's the hardest thing. I think we designed some token economies with governance as a main utility, and it's really difficult to lay out 100% how that transition happens, the transition of power to the decentralized power structure. But yeah, it's very interesting. I think that's a good allusion to. Yeah, it's like a lot like raising a child, and you have to wait till they're the right age to fully give them the reins or the autonomy to make decisions. But yeah, I wanted to ask too, like, do you have like a sort of early vetting structure in place? Or I imagine you guys are going to do the brunt of the vetting and the sourcing of the deals, but are you going to have some sort of referral mechanism for people that bring deals to the community?
Yeah, I'm not sure on referral mechanism yet, but already we have DAO members, particularly in the very big VIP circle, that bring quality deals through. So we will have that system in place where any project can come along and apply on the website, but also they can be introduced by DAO members, and then they go through a design process essentially. So, yeah. And then the idea is we'll have a full, so Moonpass, that I mentioned earlier, we've built this full portal for DAO members, which will have basically their membership and their investments are issued inside NFTs. And they use the NFT to access the portal. And then we've got staking, governance, OTC marketplace, which is coming on board a bit later, inbuilt decks, everything all in one place that they can go to. But the projects, each project that comes through and passes the test and goes through due diligence, there'll be an area for it which will have the full DD report, and then people make their own decisions if they want to invest. But the DAO fund will also invest with its own strategy, which again is something that we will determine in the first place. We'll outline a strategy, but then gradually over time we'll allow more influence over the DAO fund from the community.
Yeah, I think you touch a lot on the idea of community, and it's so powerful when you consider MoonbootsDAO and this investment arm as a sort of institutional investment player, because you have a lot of projects sometimes that have trouble sourcing funds from some of the bigger VCs, the ones with more notoriety that get like the eyeballs open on a cap table or a white paper, but all of a sudden you've got a community-driven initiative potentially through sheer popular demand for a new product or a new project that's coming to market. And it's so powerful. But on the same topic of community, I wanted to ask you, because you guys are very, very well experienced in building strong communities. You offer, or you at least, help other clients do this as well. Something about Web3 communities is so niche and it's so unique. You don't see it outside of Web3 so much. So for example, Apple or Tesla might have such a centralized and vibrant community behind their products or some of their companies. And so what do you think like one of the biggest pros for having these communities are, but also like what are some of the drawbacks of building a community like this behind your company?
Yeah, I think in the Web3 space, community is quite a fickle thing, and you get people moving around from one place to the other, and depending on how well the token is performing, that's the sentiment of the community. So I think we need to kind of move away from that and have it more focused on building ecosystem value for each project or brand or whatever it may be. And it's quite an interesting area that we're exploring at the moment with. So Moonpass, we've got the token management product, but we've onboarded a kind of all-star C-suite. So ex-Spotify product manager, ex-Meta, UK Northern Ireland CFO, current Beatport SVP, ex-F1 marketing manager. So we've brought this team on board to build a brand loyalty platform using all the Web3 toolset and advanced autonomous optimization, AI engine, and hyper-personalization. That's the tech side. But the interesting thing is all of these big brands are kind of realizing that community is becoming more powerful than product. And I think they're trying to work out how to harness that in the right way. So the right way we see is having your own ecosystem that basically rewards participants based on the value of their contribution. So with the brand loyalty platform, we plan to plug Chappyz in, for example, and allow people to reward with their loyalty points and other perks for contributions to the community. And Chappyz next evolution, we brought on a top AI specialist in January to build this out. So we're using deep learning, multi-ML models, NLP, etc., to really understand communities, the context of the conversation, the topic of discussion, but also like whether people are helping each other in that context, etc. So Chappyz should be a really interesting tool for brands as well, to really understand their communities and promote this kind of culture of supporting the ecosystem in each other.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I think there's something funny about communities in Web3, and you mentioned it before. A lot of times you see these glamour metrics: community size, number of Twitter followers, number of Telegram subscribers, and when you really start looking deeper, you see like maybe 1% of people in these communities are actually engaging or they're active. And Carmelo and I, we have this kind of like pessimistic viewpoint, especially as investors in this space, understanding that many VCs, many investors look at community metrics as an idea of conversion of community members into the product. And so when that's organic, when that's real, that's a fantastic thing, right? It's a great metric, but it's been in many cases, maybe bastardized, at least to pump numbers or give the impression to investors or maybe even other people that after this company chooses to launch a digital asset or take a token to market, that might translate into token holders. That might translate into people buying in and providing liquidity in these markets. It's this really weird game I think has been played, but I'm happy to hear it's changing and people are starting to think more about user conversion or Telegram in subscriber conversion into like product users and people that are actually going to love this product and bring in some economic activity in that ecosystem.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's actually driven by exchanges and launch pads and those kind of industry participants who are really focused on that launch phase and volume and number of X's. But really, they don't care what happens after that in many cases. So It's what happens after that that interests us, because that's really the longevity of any project.
That's what I like to hear. And yeah, on that note, like, I mean, at Arcanum, we're definitely interested in investing in things that we see will be here for the long haul, not just a short launch. And there's excitement and everybody forgets about it. But how do you think something like Chappyz will translate to real world companies? Because those are the ones that really interest us, ones that actually have a crossover out of the Web3 space. And obviously, I think you guys could do quite well just sticking to the Web3 space, because there's enough demand for what Chappyz is doing and building. But yeah, do you see any issues with like taking that leap into the traditional space and giving this sort of option to companies that are not Web3 integrated yet?
No, not at all. Obviously, we know the Web3 space well. With Chappyz, we're partnered with a lot of launchpads and marketing agencies and incubators, etc. So I think when we're ready with V3, the product, we can really accelerate adoption in the Web3 space. But no matter how big we all think it is when we're sat inside the Web3 space, it's not that big. So as I alluded to earlier, kind of part of our overall strategy with Moonpass and the brand loyalty platform, and we've got pretty big, well-known global brands, two of them as client zeros for Moonpass. But for the loyalty platform, that's very much aimed at all the mid-high-level global brands, and Chappyz will plug into it. So we very much see Chappyz playing an important part as they build up their digital communities. If you think about a brand loyalty platform where you've got this kind of hyper-personalization, you've got replace tokens for points or whatever way you want to look at it, and digital collectibles and that kind of thing. But Chappyz can sit in there really nicely and reward people with ecosystem rewards for staying engaged in the digital communities, helping others, and really kind of conveying the brand message.
Give me a second, because you mentioned Moonpass, and I was largely unfamiliar with it before we started talking. But this is really exciting to see you guys working on this new venture. And so the idea of, I mean, it seems to me it's largely catered towards adoption into crypto. It's like providing a lot of these tools, helping companies integrate a lot of this like infrastructure and start issuing tokens or assets and bringing that aspect into community. So if you don't mind, just give us like a rundown on what this looks like.
Yeah, so Moonpass kind of was born out of another pain point that we'd suffered from an investment perspective, which was when you invest early in projects and you're sat on vesting contracts, they might be quite long, and you have no optionality around what to do with that investment. You just sit and wait and see what happens. And, the idea we came up with was, wouldn't it be great if we could attach that to an NFT or attach tokens to an NFT and use the NFT as the vessel, which then makes that position tradable on an open market without affecting the market too. So we played around, we did quite a lot of development work, and ended up creating a contract that allows you to attach tokens and vesting contracts inside an NFT. Also on multiple chains. At the moment we're EVM only, we've just integrated Immutable X, we're working on more. So that was the base concept. So to allow investment positions to be inside an NFT and tradable and create an OTC market. But then the further we got with it, it became more interesting, because we developed, we stealth-developed this and actually used it for Chappyz. So Chappyz, we did, in a pretty difficult market, 10,000 NFTs at $10 each, or just under $10. And each of them, there were 6 different rarities, and each rarity had a different amount of tokens. And they're released they're vested in weekly batches over the course of a year. And that's kind of played out really nicely as the Chappyz price has done well, the token market's done well. Then we've used the NFTs as kind of eligibility in Chappyz campaigns and kind of created this quite cool environment. So then we realized, actually, you can use Moonpass for crowdfunding, you can create NFTs, you can attach tokens, you can use it for airdrops, which we also did. And then we thought, okay, if we've got this kind of really cool token management system, why don't we add staking and governance and a marketplace and a DEX inside the portal? And then suddenly you've got basically everything you need to to kind of manage and for on the user side to interact with the project's ecosystem all in one package. So yeah, that's I think V2 with the staking and governance should be ready at the end of the month, which ties in MoonbootsDAO is obviously the first client that will get the V2. But we've also got some other great clients like Devi, which is layer 1 blockchain. We've got Param Labs. We've got some quite interesting use cases. So that's kind of really exciting. And then product 2 will be for the Web 2 world. So all of that tech will be utilized for a brand loyalty platform where they can really build their own digital ecosystem and community.
Yeah, that's exciting.
What's going to be like the main revenue drivers for Moonpass? Like, I don't think there's been any mention of a token for it, but it's going to obviously have to make money somehow.
Yeah, we will. I think just because of what we're doing, we want that to be a Web3 economy as well. So eventually there'll be a token. The revenue model is really interesting for that because if you look at token management platforms, which to us are pretty boring, like you go to claim portal, people go and claim tokens and that's it. Yeah. They tend to charge 10 to 20K upfront, or they charge a monthly subscription model based on number of wallets. So we did it differently. We charge a low upfront fee, which is for a fully white labeled portal, which is $3,500. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And then all of the revenue comes from small transaction fees. So there's like a 0.3 to 4.5%, but capped claim fee. There's revenue from the DEX and also revenue from the OTC marketplace. So the platform actually makes pretty quickly, ends up making the project's money rather than costing the money too. So it's quite a nice revenue model. Then obviously all of that eventually will be tokenized, but we're just structuring the raise for that at the moment because of the loyalty side is a bit of a bigger picture as well. So.
Yeah, I think that's a smarter structure anyways. I agree. Like I see a lot of these white labeling companies, just one flat fee, and they don't even think, oh, this is going to be a headache down the line. We're going to have to, adjust things or fix things, and basically a one-time fee, and then you're working forever for these people running their platform or helping them with tech issues. So I think it's much smarter to go the revenue, the subscription route or the transaction fee. But that's interesting. I didn't know that you were going to have a token for Moonpass potentially.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tokenize everything. And then you start building a community behind Moonpass. So you've got multiple communities to manage.
Well, yeah, but it's interesting because they're all kind of interlinked as well. And from a maybe in hindsight we could have done one Moonboots Labs economy, but they're all very individual in the way that they work as well. So that's the reason we've done it that way. But yeah, it's all fun.
I wanted to ask you, John, some people might be tuning in and wondering like, okay, give me the sweet alpha on growing a community, because nowadays it's quite hard to organically grow a community. What are some of your top tips or tricks on growing a strong, vibrant community that can ultimately translate into product users or investors of some sort?
Yeah, it's an interesting area. Obviously, Chappyz aside, which is kind of designed to cultivate and engage communities. But if we take Chappyz out of the equation, you've got all these tools out there that are very good at throwing numbers at communities. So there's Eelies and Galaxies and Gleams, and you can quickly fill up the numbers. But and we did actually try those out, which was a bit of competitor comparison, even though we're not kind of pitching in the same environment. But once you've got them in your community, I think it's very important to be founder-led. So like I found personally that being active in our communities pretty much daily and talking to people and explaining from our perspective what the vision is, what we're doing, et cetera, that's really, really helped to cultivate a loyal community, because they understand kind of what's making the whole thing tick, what our passion is and that kind of thing. So that's probably the biggest single tip. And then you find you get the network effect from that. So once people trust you, trust the product, see the vision, then they start talking to others about it. And word of mouth is always the best form of marketing you can get.
Yeah, that's a good point. Web3 is obsessed with acquisition marketing, but they most marketers I talk to in Web3, they have they've never heard of retention marketing. They just, we live in especially last cycle, it's just pay people. We're going to pay you to go to our AMAs and watch our videos and tweet and give money and giveaways, and then pray that you stay in our community long enough for VCs to be impressed by our numbers. And that's basically been the marketing model up until now.
And it's all built around the launch phase, isn't it? And then I don't know what. Yeah.
I didn't say it. Yeah, again, this is one of the most.
But from an investor perspective, that's one of our main kind of go-to-market questions. So they say, "Oh, we've got these KOLs, we've got this in place. What happens after launch?"
Oh man. Yeah, but this is one of the most exciting aspects of Web3. And going back to the idea of like Apple or Tesla, can you imagine if they had like a Web3-esque Telegram community? But I've never seen an industry where so many people have a direct conduit to a CEO and a founder of a company. And Carmelo and I, even some of our portfolio clients and some of our advisory clients, they're running, $100+ million companies on the equity side, and they're still actively communicating with people in their communities, and they're trying to get feedback. They're market testing. They're understanding like what the demand for certain products and features are. And although maybe it's
valuable both ways, isn't it?
Yeah. And, like an active Telegram community, or at least members in an active Telegram community, might not be the best, average picture of the product user, considering there's still a lot of degens everywhere, but it still gives you some idea of what might work and what might not work, instead of creating that like massive void between the C-suite and people on the ground. It's such a great part of this industry. I hope persists.
Agree. And I think going back to the community building side, I think what we all have to realize is that there are only a relatively small number of engaged users who are interested in these things on Telegram. So one of the things we're doing with Chappyz, so once we've got V3, we've got account abstraction, we've got gasless transactions, everything ready. And if you look at the Chappyz website and product, it's designed to be simple and welcoming for anyone. It doesn't look complicated. So we've actually got a partnership with a company called Unitasker, which works with an army of 600,000-700,000 students in the UK, US, and other places now. So what we want to do is basically reach out to that market of students, introduce them to Chappyz. And that's really our first sort of real test, I guess, of can a student that doesn't have a MetaMask, that has never interacted with Web3 before, can they come into the Chappyz ecosystem, explore these communities, like learn something, get educated, and use it and earn rewards, because obviously students need earning some money as well. So we thought that was a kind of perfect test demographic to really see if what we've built has the right product market fit to then expand into other kind of Web2 brand areas as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I'm vaguely familiar with it, but for people that are not familiar with Chappyz, how do you differentiate between actual value and, like we were talking about it, we touched on it before, but I remember last cycle, some VCs would join a Telegram community, see 100,000 people, which first off is ridiculous. Like, why would anybody want to join a Telegram group where there's 100,000 people? But if you look, it's just a bunch of people selling sex ads or, linking to their thing that they're doing or saying when Moon, when Binance. And there's no actual discussion going on and therefore no value. Like you don't stay there long before you realize there's nothing of value there, and you leave and you realize it's all botted. So I wanted to ask, how do you differentiate between high level actual discussion and just basic typical Web3 degen talk? And I know you have a robust AI model, and I think you mentioned also that you're going to roll out V3 soon for Chappyz, but I wanted to touch on what that's going to do differently or better, and how do you already account for that?
Yeah, so there's a few different areas. Most of that comes from the AI engine. So basically the AI system reads every message in a community and then analyzes it on content, topic of discussion, sentiment, context, all of those different things. This is what V3 will be. At the moment, we're limited to 10 different Web3 topics. It's not a perfect system, but V3 will be pretty much any topic that the system will be able to understand. What it does then is when the project sets up a campaign, or the brand or the community sets up a campaign, they determine what's important to them in terms of topic of discussion and narrative. So from a gaming project, you can kind of put specific areas of discussion that should be rewarded, how much you weight the rewards towards those topics. And then based on the brand narrative that the community has set up, the AI system gives a percentage score for each conversation. And then that percentage score is correlated to a token reward and a points reward, or one or the other. And then we've also built in, because we kind of see this problem from a lot of the growth tools, the Zealies and Galaxies and Questions, etc. Really, we see a lot of those participants as value extractors that come and take rewards and then leave, and they have no interest in the ecosystem itself. So we've put a few different kind of, we've implemented a few different things to tackle that. So one is when you set up a campaign, you can set eligibility criteria. So that might be you have to hold a minimum token balance, or you have to hold a specific NFT or something like that. So that helps quite a lot to make sure that you're rewarding the right people. And then also in the AI system, you can set up a minimum threshold. So let's say I set up 25% as the minimum score. That discounts all the throwaway comments, the Bitcoin to the moon and nice project and blah blah blah. So we put a few different things in the system to allow it to really reward those that deserve it the most.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's impossible to get it 100% right, but that's definitely a better solution than we currently have. And that actually brought up an interesting point. Do you see this working in KOL's favor, or maybe redefining the KOL space too? Because this could be the new KOL system. Just like a Telegram community with a bunch of botted followers is not really helpful. The same can be said about a KOL or influencer who has a large following but doesn't actually demonstrably convert any users or attention. So you could maybe reward people for their value, even if it's a regular person in the community with no following, let's say, but maybe they're able to be helpful and friendly and share educational tips and pointers. And maybe that's like the new sort of referral system that could supersede and replace this KOL system.
Yeah, and that's what we've found, as I alluded to earlier, because like if you look at the Chappyz Telegram, it's all genuine conversation, real people helping each other, talking about real things. And that for us is how it should be. But what that creates is this really strong community that will then kind of support any community initiatives and everything else. So as I alluded to earlier, compared to some of the big KOLs with hundreds of thousands of followers and numbers and everything else, we're actually outstripping them on referrals for projects that Chappyz is partnered with, because we've actually got a real engaged community.
That's good.
And this is exciting. It's like I don't want to play devil's advocate, but it sounds like a great opportunity for someone to just come in completely unknown and put in the work and, gain a lot of influence, contribute, get a lot of people following this person, seeing this person as like a key opinion leader, and developing into like a cult-like figure, which we've seen in crypto before. But that's kind of exciting. I like that. It's like a grassroots individual growth.
I think, that's an interesting view on it, because like from our perspective, no disrespect to any KOLs I know, but most KOLs are pretty much useless in the value that they provide. There are a few that are, but what's more interesting to us are centers of influence. So they can have smaller followings, but actually they might have alpha groups, or they might have whatever, and they actually try and help people and engage, because as we all know in this room, a lot of the KOL culture, they're paid to promote a project and that's it. But when you look at the centers of influence, because they're kind of building up this close network of people around them, then they have to be a lot more careful about what they're promoting or talking about and everything else. So it's more focused towards education than outright promotion.
Yeah, instead of telling people what to buy, you're actually trying to help point people in the right direction on what they can digest and learn about and make their own decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask too, I had a question. It's kind of, I mean, it's unrelated, but it's related to everything we've spoke about. But you have the unique perspective of being a founder and an investor, which is nice. We're investors, so we like investing in dynamic founders that know both sides of the coin. But you're running several companies, you're investing, you have a family. So I wanted to ask, like, how do you do it all? And how do you stay sane, especially now in the bull market?
Yeah, it's a tough one. As I said, last bull run, we were running around quite aimlessly with our hair on fire. Dan and I both got burnt out at various stages. And I think this time around, we're a lot more calm and composed. So we're building an ecosystem. We've got a clear direction with that, and we're building that step by step. Obviously, it's busy, but we manage the balance between having calls and doing work and running the companies, I guess. And then it's a case of really scaling carefully. So we've taken a lot of work on our shoulders. We're now, as we get to each stage, when we realize we're too busy, then we make the right hires and we take time over doing that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think there's also a bit of an understanding between Dan and I that if one of us needs a day break or whatever, and then we just cover it and spend a bit of time with the family. And yeah, family time is the most important. And I think making sure that we get that kind of allows you to charge the batteries. It gives you a reason for doing all of this as well. So can't forget that.
Yeah. Healthy corporate culture. Something that we like to practice at Arcanum as well. But yeah, with all that being said, we got to wrap this up. I think you've got to get going. But before you do, John, we have one more question for you. We ask all of our guests. And the rules are quite simple. You can say anything, person, place, event, thing, except for your own companies. What are you most bullish on right now in this current industry?
I think the thing I'm most bullish on is the Bitcoin ecosystem. I know it's a hot topic and trend at the moment, but Bitcoin's always been the daddy of all of this and the thing that got most of us into it. And there's a lot of liquidity trapped on Bitcoin. Essentially, there's hasn't been much development until the past year or so, and I really think that's probably the most exciting area of innovation at the moment, aside from the real world use cases that are gradually coming in. So yeah, we'll go for Bitcoin ecosystem. I could have named a few there, but that's my answer.
Oh man, I really loves Bitcoin. Yeah. I'm more of a Sui Maxi.
The Sui Maxi, okay. I think Sui will get the more real world application potentially, but let's see.
Waiting for Sui meme coins. Here we go.
Yeah. We have to start making one of those as well.
meme launchpad.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
are you guys heading to Token 2049 by any chance to Dubai?
I am. Yeah, actually. I'm going to be there. Actually, I've got 3 conferences in a row there, which I know I'm going to be exhausted by the end of. But if you're going, I'll see you. It's going to be great to catch up in person.
I just booked my flight, so I'll hit you up a bit.
Oh, here we go. It's going to be a good one. Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Great catching up with you. Great speaking with you about Chappyz, MoonbootsDAO, and Moonpass. And for any of our viewers, if you're interested in catching up with John, learning more about what he's doing, we've got links in the show notes below. Thanks always for tuning in and catching this week's Boom Room interview. And see y'all next week. We're back with another exciting interview. John, best of luck and take care, brother.
Thanks, guys. Big pleasure. Bye-bye.
Ciao.